Hi, I'm Billy Shore. Welcome back to Add Passion and Stir. It's our weekly conversation about food, passion, and making a difference in the world. We are having these conversations in the time of COVID, in the time of increased awareness to structural racism and racial justice. And our guests have been talking about these issues and many more. Today, we are really lucky to have Kwame Onwuachi, the chef from Kith and Ken, who's been on Add Passion and Stir before. He's a 2019 James Beard Award winner and the author of an amazing book called Notes from a Young Black Chef. Kwame, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Tell us where you are and how you're doing.
Right now, I am in Boston, Mass. I am helping my mother-in-law move out of her apartment. And yeah, I've got my niece with me as well. She's visiting from New Orleans.
Well, I can't even picture DC without you, so I'm sure you're going to be back there before too long. How and you've stayed healthy, your family's healthy, everybody's good?
Yeah, I'm healthy for the most part. I'm healthy. My family, my grandfather's not doing too well, but no one was affected directly by the coronavirus. Which I'm very grateful for.
Well, that's good to hear. You know what I wanted to start with? The last time we were together, you had very generously agreed to do a conversation with Jose Andres in a No Kid Hungry summit that we were holding, the Chair of Strength was holding in Washington, D.C. And Jose kind of started the conversation, and now it's so interesting in the moment that we're living in now. And he said he had a question about the title of your book, Notes from a Young Black Chef. He said, why did you have to state that you were a black chef? Why would just not Notes from a Young Chef? And of course, now we're in a moment where everybody has such heightened awareness to the really significant issues and obstacles that Black men and women, professional chefs, face. But I don't. Do you recall that conversation?
Yeah, I do.
And I mean, you were very eloquent explaining why you chose that title. But I thought that would be a good place for us to start. Maybe just to talk a little bit about the book, why you wrote it, why you titled it that way.
Yeah, well, the book is about my life story, and it talks about how I got to where I am today and all of the success and failure in between. The systematic racism, microaggressions, macroaggressions that come with that, and what it really takes to achieve something, and the mental dexterity it takes to like push through when your skin is darker than most. The title of the book really it just encompasses what people think of me when I walk into a room. They think, oh, there goes a black chef before they think of, oh, there's a chef. The same thing that women have to go through is a female chef instead of, oh, it's just a chef. Not many times they're like, oh, that's a white chef over there. It's just that's a chef. So I needed to be the one to say it before anybody else did, and to tell that story so other young Black professionals can identify with that. And if you remove the word chef from it, that story, those narratives still remain true. You can put young Black photographer, young Black nurse, and when you're around a lot of people that don't look like you, and sometimes or more times than none, they have some sort of preconceived notion of how you should act, how you should talk, or why are you here. It makes it harder for you to get to the top, and I wanted to tell that story in totality. So that's a long answer.
Well, no, I mean, it's an important answer because we're all, we've all been talking about Black Lives Matter. And what you're saying is professionally and personally, being Black matters. You can't be just a young chef. You're going to be a young Black chef when you walk into a room.
Mm-hmm. And it was like an FU to everybody, that has looked over me or looked past me. It's like, here I am. Here's my notes from a young Black chef.
Well, since the book, you've written more about the obstacle that Black chefs have to overcome. You had what I thought was a very powerful piece in the Washington Post just a few weeks ago in early June, where you told the story of several chefs of color. And you talked about one of the things you said was, I'll just read it. I know firsthand how hard it is for a person of color in this industry. There have been fleeting moments of defeat, wavering emotions of dissolution, but I keep running back to it time and time again. In March, I laid off all 70 of my employees at Kitten Ken, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But with the roller coaster of emotions and uncertainty that each day brings, the thought that resonates the most is as clear as day. We will prevail. We will survive. We will come back more unified than ever. So you were talking not just about, of course, being a Black chef, but about being a Black chef in the time of this pandemic. How did you deal with the pandemic? What was your response to it in the early days? How has it evolved? What's happening with Kith and Kin?
Um, the pandemic is all around tough. First, obviously, with closing the business, but also closing of the world. Like we're all in this together. All businesses closed in all different markets and departments. And I think for me, what was really tough about it was mourning, my past life of not being able to go out and travel and see my family and see my friends or cook for people. Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I really missed. So some days were tough mentally to get through. Some days were easier, and I had to kind of let these emotions pass through me and also start to be comfortable with the unknown.
I was going to ask you, what were some of your kind of survival strategies? And I know you had to just read this passage. You had to face the very painful decision to furlough or lay off your staff. So what did you do to take care of yourself?
Worked out. Tried to take it easy when it first shut down. I hit the ground running. I think you probably saw me everywhere. I was on TV, CNN, writing articles, doing recipes on Instagram, and I never gave myself time to really digest, the gravity of what has happened. We lost a lot of souls as well in this world and in America. That's big. Yeah, I think everybody knows someone that has either contracted it or perished from it. So I needed to take a step back and not do any press or not go on social media. I think collectively I've probably done 3 weeks of being dark on social media. It's important to kind of hit that reset button and take care of yourself.
And so, what has become of Kith and Kin now? Are you doing carry out to go?
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing carry out to go, but we just opened with a limited menu. But honestly, for me, I don't know, what the future of Kitten can hold, because having a restaurant in a community, you kind of have a responsibility to that community. You're serving something. Yes, food is an art form, but also food is nourishment. It's how we survive. It's how we grow. And I think we have an obligation to the community to give access to people that can't afford these really fancy Michelin starred meals, that just need food. And I was inspired over the pandemic. When I went back to my neighborhood in the South Bronx where I grew up, and I cooked for the people in the neighborhood, and it was the most gratifying feeling I've had in a long time. They weren't talking about this needed a little bit more salt, or, the nuances of the curry, or XYZ, or 3 stars.
So, Kwame, what did that look like? How many days did you do that? Where did you do it from? How many folks showed up?
I did it for 3 weeks in the South Bronx, this restaurant
Wow.
called Mott Haven Bar and Grill. I don't know, we did like 400, 500 people a day or something like that. Yeah, it makes me rethink of the structure of a restaurant, and soon I'll be doing my own restaurant one day. Kitten Ken is still in the Intercontinental Hotel. So, my goal is to have my own restaurant group, and hopefully I can instill those values into the DNA of the restaurant from the beginning.
And the folks who were showing up in the South Bronx were these the folks that we've been seeing on TV and in other reports who, because of unemployment, because of COVID, had nowhere else to turn for just their basic necessities of food?
Yeah, exactly. So we're feeding first responders, first and foremost, talking like fire department, NYPD, nurses, and then we were feeding the community college students that were out of a job. They can't get a job right now, and they're out of school. So yeah, those are the people primarily, and then we opened it up to anyone in the community that just wanted a hot meal.
I wonder how this is changing chefs as a community. I had a conversation that this conversation is reminding me of with Daniel Hume a few weeks ago, who said as a result of what's going on, he's decided that he doesn't really just want to cook for the 1%. He wants to cook for the other 99%. Something very similar to what you just said. Not the meals that only a very, very few people can afford, but appreciating food as the vital sustenance that it is, which of course at Share Strength and the No Get Hungry campaign is the way we always think about it. And we work with so many restaurateurs, but it sounds like a lot of folks are really going to be personally transformed, people in the industry. Is that a fair statement?
I think so. I would hope so. I would hope we don't just go back to the same normal, that we create a new normal that really makes sure that we're taking care of our staff and our community as well as, the bottom line. And I think there are ways to do that. And I think the general public needs to understand that food costs money, and not to bat their eye at a $20 burger or $25 burger, because we do have aspirations of giving our staff health care and making sure that hopefully they have a 401k. And if we're charging $8 for a burger or, a Friday night fish special, it's harder to do that. We've seen, because of COVID, the vulnerability that the restaurant industry has. It's vulnerable because it's also built upon a broken system of slavery. That's where tipping came from. Restaurants are profitable because they didn't have to pay their cooks because they were usually black. We need to change that narrative and charge what the food is worth. I think that's the only way. So we need understanding on both sides, of the past and the restaurant.
And Kwame, I should know this, but I don't. Is that was the genesis of tipping?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They weren't
Wow.
paid, so it was like, here's a quarter, you flick a quarter at them, and it then graduated into what it is today, and that's why you see a lot of tipped employees. They are by law able to be below minimum wage, and that comes from them generally being black people in the beginning.
And with everything that's going on now in terms of Black Lives Matter, the renewed activism, what's your confidence level that this is more than a moment that will pass, but that's something that could really, it's an opportunity that a lot of us can seize to really create lasting change? I know you've got a sense of history and a sense of activism. What's your confidence level?
Yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic for sure, but I think with thought comes change. If you're thinking about something, I think I spoke about this last time when I was on here. That I'm not saying that my book is going to change someone overnight, but it will get people to think about the next time they do something or the way that they're acting within their own microcosm. So I think it's important to keep this momentum going, keep the protests going, keep talking about it, and hopefully that it will become more inclusive over time.
Tell me a little bit about, for you, inside of you, where this impulse comes to write, to give voice to these social issues. A book's not an easy thing to write, and then you banged out this really important piece in the Washington Post about the obstacles facing Black chefs. That was so timely. But tell me a little bit. Is there there must be this kind of just like this flame inside of you that is constantly saying, "I've got to speak out."
Yeah, I mean, I try to speak my mind, and I just try to be truthful and speak from experience, more importantly. And that's just who I've been, who I've always been. And I think it's important, because there's a lot of people that share similar stories, and when they hear someone being vocal about it, it lets them know that they're not crazy and they're not alone.
Who else in the chef and the culinary community has given voice that you admire on these issues? Who are the allies in this movement?
Definitely Marcus Samuelson, Eduardo Jordan, J.J. Johnson, Michael Twitty.
One of the other things that you wrote in the Washington Post piece about obstacles facing chefs, Black chefs, and I had not thought about this, but it's a different kind of struggle. You wrote that I went through some struggle in trying to find my path to the cuisine of my heritage. Investors and owners have constantly pushed me to do what they think is right instead of what was authentic to me. So I guess for a new chef, that's something you feel, right? This tension between balancing what investors expect from you and what's in your DNA in terms of what you want to cook. How did you deal with that?
I mean, it had to come through experience. I think anybody, whether they're black, white, brown, or whatever color, get that first opportunity to run your own place, or just to run a place and have creative freedom. That creative freedom still comes at a cost, and that excitement can stifle that, and not wanting to lose the opportunity, especially for the first time. So, for me, finding my voice was also, it came through experience of knowing that I needed to do what was authentic to me in order to be successful. And it's okay to say no, because if you compromise, you may not be as successful as you can be anyway. So why don't you just like take it for what it is?
Yeah, my feeling, I see this with creative artists in every profession, is unless you're really true to what you need to say or do, it diminishes your power. It dilutes it. You're also involved in policy efforts through the Independent Restaurant Coalition. Tell us a little bit about what that is and what kind of things that you're advocating for to help the restaurant industry in the U.S. get back on its feet.
Well, we're advocating for a lot. We pushed to get the 8 weeks spending period for the PPP loan to 24 weeks, which is a huge win. We also are pushing for a restaurant stabilization fund, because the restaurant industry is so fickle and we have been gutted by COVID. We're in dire need of some sort of stabilization fund moving forward, because the restaurants aren't operating at full capacity and won't be until, I think, until we have a vaccine. Really, there's not people aren't comfortable going out. And then we're also pushing for a more equitable industry. We just started a subcommittee for equity and inclusion, to really tackle the lack of diversity within the fine dining, or modern dining industry. So yeah, we got a lot to work on. I think there's a lot more that we could do. We're a young organization, a young coalition, and the longer we are around, the more experience we'll have and the more that we can tackle.
But you think a vaccine is, and I agree with you, a vaccine is going to be key to getting people back.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's major key. Major key.
I heard, there's been so much attention to the notion of opening up at 25% or 50% or what have you. And I've heard many restaurateurs say that they have, not been profitable or only barely profitable at 80 or 90%, so it's hard to imagine how it works without a full restaurant. And I'm guessing that's the case for you as well.
Yeah, it doesn't work. There's no profit at all, and then on top of that, you can't bring back your staff as well. So it's a tough predicament to be in, for sure. And I don't know. That's why, for me, it's maybe time to just regroup and attack this again in a different light.
For those of us who are passionate about restaurants, love them, work with them, as Share Strength does, care about them becoming more diverse and inclusive. If you're not a chef or a restaurateur, but a fan, how can those of us make a difference? How can we help? Is the Independent Restaurant Coalition have a website that we can go to? Are there ways to donate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to saverestaurants.com, and there's plenty of literature there to point you in the right direction, to help or give back, and that can be monetary or not. It can be calling your local representative to ask them to help support the Restaurant Stabilization Fund, or it can be a donation to help us lobby and continue doing what we're doing. But you can also just go out and support your restaurants and tip well, and spread the word. Make a takeout night. So and also make sure that you're diversifying where your dollars are going. It's very, very important. They're not just going to maybe the same place, but you're trying out different restaurants in neighborhoods that are maybe outside of your zip code.
In terms of those are great suggestions. In terms of probably the tougher issue of how to build more diversity into the industry itself. Are there is there a list of things that you're working on in that regard? I'm guessing, and having read a little bit more about what you've talked about, I'm guessing that a lot of it has to do with investing in young talent and giving them an opportunity, talent that maybe gets overlooked by traditional investors. But what kind of things can we be supporting so that we do have more diversity?
The power is in the dollar. So where you spend your money is where things go. Where you spend your money is where publications go, what they write about. So diversify where you're spending your dollars, whether it's
The power is in the dollar.
yeah, it's in the dollar. So like I don't really care if it's children's literature. You need to diversify that, in between, Berenstain Bears and I don't know what kids read, but think Dr. Seuss, maybe there should be some black narratives in there as well. And no matter what nationality your kids are, because I guarantee you that, I grew up with some white narratives in my library collection because there's just more of that. So diversifying that so your children can grow up seeking out these things because it's more familiar to them as opposed to as exotic. And that's how we can really make sure that things continue to diversify and make this just the norm. And it starts with the youth, really.
I love that advice, Kwame, because it's something that each and every one of us can be conscious of, something that we can do, something that we can get our families involved in and need to. I'm going to wrap up here by reading one more passage because it's such a hopeful and optimistic one from your Washington Post piece of June 8th, where you write that the current state of affairs is nothing new. We're just able to share it more easily through our devices. Change comes with constant, persistent pressure. Change comes with self-exploration and empathy. Change is proactive and not reactive. Change is action. It is going to take investing in our Black youth mentally, spiritually, and physically. It doesn't come with a tweet, a post, or even an article for that matter. If we truly plant the seeds of understanding, inclusion, compassion, and equity today, we will certainly have a better future tomorrow. Kwame, I can't thank you enough, not only for being with us on Add Passion and Stir, but for what you do, for what you say, for putting that hopeful frame around where we are in this moment. I can tell from talking to you that you've got a lot going on in the back of your mind about what your future is going to look like, what the future of the industry is going to look like. I want to just kind of keep following you because I feel like you represent the future, and hopefully we can all find ways to be supportive.
I appreciate that. Thank you always for your support. I hope you're well, and your wife and your family. And I look forward to seeing you in person one day.
I can't wait forward to seeing you at whatever restaurant you're at, but especially your own restaurant as soon as you have it. Kwame Onwuachi, thanks so much for being with us. And just a reminder to folks that Notes from a Young Black Chef is one of the best things you can read in this moment or any other moment. Thanks so much for joining us on Add Passion and Stir. I'm Billy Shore. I hope you'll go back and look at our archive of episodes at addpassionandstir.com. You can rate us, rank us, subscribe, and share with friends. On behalf of the whole team at Share Our Strength in the No Kid Hungry campaign, thanks for listening.